Greetings, one and all, and welcome to morning. Or oh my God, seven kinds of mischief. I did it again. Damn it! I said mornings of mischief instead of seven kinds of mischief. Oh shit! I'm getting out of practice. Usually Tuesdays and Thursdays, I was always saying seven kinds of mischief. Now I'm saying the round table. So it's like, okay, it's not the round table. We're on seven kinds of mischief. How are you doing tonight, Adega?
Oh, I am so scatterbrained. It's not even funny, but I'm in good spirit, so it's fun. Dealing with a new puppy. Hello to everyone that said hi in chat, but not bad. I actually this morning inspired me in two ways. One, simply because I have been working so much in several different projects, which I don't feel like I'm actually equipped to do anymore, but I'm going to keep at it. So I think it was a missing persons case that was really interesting that I was going to do tonight, and it's gone. I don't know where it happened to it. But listening to the chat, and this is all honesty, I would have changed anyway. Listening to the chat, seeing the generosity of the group, I'm not doing anything scary tonight. I'm going to do my story and not... Of course, you guys know I'm not looking for anything. I just wanted... The whole reason why I want to do this story is for the simple fact that when I saw everyone contributing to... What was her name again? I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names.
Rebecca.
Like I said, Rebecca. When I saw her this morning and the absolute generosity of everybody helping her out, and then seeing everyone else, because everyone has a story or knows someone that has a story of being seriously on the brink, that I don't know why I felt I needed to share it tonight. So I'm going to be selfish again, and I'm not going to apologize. I'm just going to do it. I think Loki knows parts of this story, and it's when my wife and I graduated from school. I graduated before she did, and then we moved out to Bullhead, Arizona. For those of you who know where it is, it's right along the Colorado River, across the river from Laughlin, Nevada, just down from one of the big dams. And at the time, it wasn't a very well-developed area. There was about 30,000 people on each side. They had just put in an airport in Bullhead, and I started working just before that, my wife and we had our special needs son. I had a practice in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I lost it because I spent most of my time at the hospital. And my son was in the hospital for 5 weeks. When he was born, it's a story in itself. They said he wasn't going to live, and they told... I'll make it quick. They wheeled him out. My wife had emergency surgery. She had a ruptured uterus. I almost lost them both. They wheeled him out. He was purple. They didn't put him on anything because they was sure, he was convinced he was going to die. And they said, get a good look at him because he's not going to make it through the night. And so they wheeled him off into the NICU. And I tried to get in. The nurses wouldn't let me get in. I finally got in to see him after I knew my wife was okay. And then it took some doing. The nurses wouldn't let me touch him. I'm a chiropractor. I had part of that mentality still kicking in. And then finally one of them said, I'm turning my back. I don't know what you're doing. He's not going to make it anyway. And I did a chiropractic thing. It's different from children, of course. And then right then and there, as soon as I did, all of his monitors took off. He started breathing on his own, everything. And the whole floor of nurses ended up in that NICU. And they were just going, what did you do? And I just said, I'm a chiropractor. And they're all going, you got to teach us this. We need to save these other kids. And I said, it's against the law. I can't do it, and I'm very sorry. But losing my practice and spending all the time in the hospital, we ended up in Bullhead, and I was working for another guy. And the promise was that I was going to get his practice one day, not too long in the future. His wife wanted to move out of the area because during the summer it got to about weeks at a time, 120, 130 degrees at night. Or during the day. At night, it's still in the 70s. It was hot during the summer. And come to find out, this guy was cheating on his taxes. I started getting a bad sense of what was going on. And I decided at one point, you know what? I'm not going to take this guy's practice. I am going to open up another practice. And we had just enough, and the guy was manipulative enough to pay you just enough to where you can buy a loaf of bread, basically. But there was that sickening feeling in the back of my mind. And I was getting an ulcer because I knew something was wrong. So I left and moved 5 miles down the road, and it was legal, although he threatened me afterwards, saying, there was a non-compete clause and all of this stuff. And like I said, there's only about 30,000 people that live there. And but I had to make a living for my family. And legally, I had already checked. Everything was fine. So I set up down the road. This guy is very, very influential in the community. Knew everybody. I was working at the time with one of the vets because I did a lot of chiropractic for animals. They'd have me come in and work on dogs that were paralyzed. We'd get them walking, various different things. And when I first found out what was going on after I moved away, he sent me some threatening letters and this and that and the other. And I ignored him. My wife and I just kept our mouths shut. We were just, trying to make a living, dealing with my son who is very sick. And our bonus child, those of you parents know what a bonus means. It's out of nowhere and was a surprise and wasn't supposed to be there, but we had another one on the way. We had a ferret, and the ferret was good at keeping bugs down and everything in the house. And they stink a little bit if you don't clean them, but it got injured. I took it to the vet. The vet said, "Wait, you're the one who used to work with this other chiropractor." I said, "Yeah." And I had been at their office many times working on their animals. She said, "Get out. We don't see you anymore." And I go, "What?" And they said, "We know what kind of person you are." And I hadn't done anything except leave that practice. It happened at grocery stores. I couldn't make a living there. I mean, barely. I had a couple friends. One of them was a dentist. And having an anthropoid cerebral palsy child, very severely handicapped, those of you who have had seriously handicapped children will know oftentimes, and sometimes frequently, the children won't sleep. And there was times when there was one day when I had gone 3 solid days without sleep. I had to take my son to the office because he kept banging on the walls and screaming all night, even though he was only about 2. And I had to let my older son and my wife sleep. And there was another night that was like that, and my friend showed up, and it was an absolute miracle. I was sitting in our living room, which was also an office because we couldn't afford better. And he knocked on the door. I couldn't believe someone was knocking at the door at midnight. It was him. And he walked in, pushed me aside, grabbed my son. I didn't know. No one told him anything like this. And he says, "Go to sleep." So I went to sleep. It was a little thing like that. But the problem was, again, we couldn't make a living. We couldn't, almost the whole community, because like I said, I had a friend or two, thought we were shysters and liars. And there was one of the last days where we were there where a guy knocked on the door and he says, "Yeah, I'm with the Internal Revenue Service." And I'm going, "Oh, crap." And he said, "Well, do you know this doctor?" And I thought, "Yeah." He says, "Do you know about his practice?" And I said, "Yeah." And he started rattling off the things. The guy had cheated on his taxes for years, owed millions, and he was trying to turn over his entire debt to the government onto me by selling me the practice through manipulating the contracts. If I hadn't left, I would have been on the hook for millions of dollars through the practice. He ended up in jail, and we ended up having to move. We lost everything because of him. I had inherited from my father tools that were almost 100 years old from his father-in-law. They had been in the family for generations. And we had to sell them to buy gas to get across country to where we started up all over again with absolutely nothing. The closest thing I got from anyone was my dentist friend. Like I said, he gave me what he could. He had a lot of kids. A night's rest, some bread. And I'd asked another guy that I knew, and, but we left with nothing. And we built up from nothing. until we were successful. But I sat there and I watched what you guys did for Rebecca, right? This morning. And I just have to say, through my experience, and I know some of you others who had mentioned it, it doesn't benefit me other than it warms my soul to see it. And thank you for being who you are. I had to do that. I didn't have any scary stories. I just had to say, you seriously, seriously touched me by your generosity. And thank you.
Just so everybody knows, I was gonna say something tomorrow. I probably still will. After the stream, I continued to talk to Rebecca, and I know that YouTube won't do any payout until the 21st of next month. But we got her the money. I went ahead and just fronted that. So she's gotten everything everyone sent this morning, along with something from Valhalla. So everything that was donated this morning, she's got plus some extra. That is, I know we're not like Jeremy from the Quartering who got $100,000 to that guy that works at the Holiday Inn or whatever, but we do what we can, and because of that, hopefully she listened to me and she's not eating ramen right now. Hopefully she is having a good dinner. Hopefully she listened when I told her, "Hey, you get something really good to eat tonight. The money's there. Get something really good to eat tonight." Hopefully she did that. She listened, and she's not eating ramen tonight. So we did something, all of us. It wasn't just me. That was this community. She said she did listen. Good, Rebecca. I'm glad. I'm glad you got something good to eat tonight. That was this entire community. I could not do this on my own. That is all of us working together to do something for somebody else.
Well, it's one of those things. It's just like you were saying, because I could see it in some of these people in the chat as well. When you've been eating stuff like that, and then you go and get a loaf of whole wheat bread, the good stuff, it is the most wonderful food you've ever eaten.
Yeah.
Because you haven't had better. And you guys did that. Oh, and she had steak. Bless you. Bless you.
Did you burn them? I hope you burned them. I hope you burned them. I hope you burned them. I love burnt steak. Burnt steak, burnt hamburger, burnt ribs, burnt whatever. It's all
now, if you ever come to visit again, I will burn it for you.
All right. Adega knows. We go to the Adega lines up this 5-star restaurant, and I'm like, yeah, I want him to burn it. And are you sure? Yes, burn it. Burn it. So. Oh man.
All right. I really, even like I said, even if I had found my report for tonight, I still would have had to tell you guys thank you. And it wasn't even for me. It was just seeing what you guys do. It means a lot. So anyway,
I am lucky, guys. I'm lucky. I understand how it looks, but I am lucky in the fact that I have the opportunity to rally, support, and help somebody. That is the coolest thing in the world. That is the greatest feeling in the world. So thank you guys so much. Everyone that contributed, everyone that said a kind word, everyone that was there in chat this morning. Thank you, because that's what matters the most.
Right.
So, thank you. And I thought, when I started this, I was like, wow, nobody's ever going to want to listen to me. So thank you for listening, and thank you for listening to Rebecca. And Rebecca's going to have some cool stuff coming her way too, from what I understand. So not just the cash, but stuff to decorate with, something to decorate with.
That's interesting.
Yeah, Psychodorf. Yeah, I will email you the I'll email you the link. Email you the link. before I've got to get into my email. Or you know what? I don't know. Are you?
Pat S., I'm assuming that you said, why did he tell every one of them to turn on me? It's because he was a pillar in the community, as they thought, but he was also a big shyster. And having me outside from being inside his little sphere, his office, knowing what was going on, it was a threat to him. So he had to bury that threat, and he was very effective at doing it. And my wife and I, we have been the type, and you guys know me enough, I would hope, that we did not say a bad thing about him to anyone. My friend knew, but he chose not to say anything either. What's the point? All's hate and bickering does is create more hate and bickering. If it was one-sided, that means there's half as many missiles being launched. You know? So we just walked away, and we're far better for it. And didn't end up in prison either. But yeah, I think the IRS they shut the office down before we left, his office. Put the the nice Internal Revenue banners on there, sold his stuff. And I think he spent some time.
That's tough.
Yep.
Going to jail like that.
Yep. All right.
Psychodorf, invite sent. All right, I am going to.
Well, shall we wait for him? Shouldn't take him very long, a minute or two.
Yeah, do you want to pop on now or after the show or at the end of the show, Psychodorf? Let us know, brother. You can be more than welcome to pop on now if you want.
Yeah, dead space.
We'll wait.
I don't know, but he's actually dancing when he does that.
Oh, don't tell him that. They're not supposed to know that.
Why else do you think he likes show tunes so much?
Okay, yeah.
He puts on his tutu and dances.
I don't have a tutu. That's BS, guys. Yeah, pop in now. Psychodorf 9, pop on. You're more than welcome to pop on, brother. Invite sent. So you should have it.
See, Lady Miss knows. Get you some maracas.
Don't get me. My name is Cuban Pete. I'm the king of the rumba beat. My maracas go chick chicka boom, chick chicka boom, chick chicka boom. Da-da-da.
You should do that on your closing stream. When you're ready to hang it up, get you a big fruit basket to put on your head.
Oh, man. Oh, God. I used to know that whole song, too. I could do that whole song. I don't know if I can do it. My maracas go chick chicka boom, chick chicka boom, chick chicka boom. Lucy! Lucy, where are you? It's Ricky. I had a machine made for me that had Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, and the creature from the Black Lagoon. That is so cool. I love the old Universal monster movies. Rebecca.
I got this white elephant gift one time. You're always supposed to give him something that's supposed to be funny, ridiculous, and anything. Yeah. And it was the full collection of it's packed away right now of they're black and white comedians. I can't remember their name now. They did the Frankenstein one. Abbott and Costello.
Abbott and Costello, yeah.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a white elephant gift, and I'm going, this is awesome.
Gundam style. Dave Bob. Gundam style.
No. You could do a lot of dances, but I wouldn't let Loki do that.
T-shirt historian. As a person of Cuban descent, I find it offensive that a white man performed that song. Let's all cancel Jim Carrey now.
Psycho's ready.
Oh, shit. shit. Oh, he is?
He says in your own time.
He's not in though. Oh, there he is. There he is. There he is. What is up, Psychodorp 9?
All right, there we go. All right.
He's doing his JJ impression. He's got all that lens flare.
No, it's not. Okay, usually my camera's covered. So, okay. In the past, anything that's on there is my fault.
Oh, you're cool.
In the past 7 years, I've had a manager that had his wife lap dancing on one of the employees, quite possibly stole stuff, certainly let his assistant steal stuff. And he got escorted off the base because mine was the ass he grabbed.
Oh, shit.
Did we lose him?
Are you still there? Psychodorp, if you're still there, we're just wait. We'll wait. If you're still there. If you're there, we can't hear you.
Nah, he must have lost connection. It sounded like a good story, too.
Oh, yeah?
Heck, when I was younger, my butt got grabbed more times than ripe tomatoes in the grocery store.
Oh, yeah. Even for someone who doesn't have one. That's me. I don't have a butt. Sorry, ladies. That's the one thing I don't have is a butt. Everything else is, yeah, great. But
It's all Loki.
I don't have a butt. I just don't have a butt. No. Nothing there to grab. Minimal glute, like Hank Hill used to say.
Oh, his building, he can't get signal out.
Oh. Shit, man. Oh, there he goes. He dropped. Well, if you want to come back on and try again, you're more than welcome to. If not, I know, dude, I'd have you on anytime. It did it on its own. It eventually just dropped you. I didn't kick you, brother. I'd never kick you. Psychodorp 9 is
He's family here.
Yeah, he's family. So. All right. Well, if you want to try again, you're more than welcome to. If you want to come on any other day, dude, you are always welcome to come on my show. Always. Psychodorp, yeah, write it out, dude. I'll read it. In the past year.
Let's see if we can catch him later. Why don't you go ahead and with your, or whatever else we're going to do, because it looks like he's having serious trouble.
Okay. All right. Psychodorp, keep writing it out, brother. I'll read it as soon as I'm done with this. I'll read it.
There it goes.
In the past year, I've been involved with 6 other people dropping paperwork. Is that like pencil whipping? That's what we used to call it back in prison. Pencil whipping. Oh, they're pencil whipping their paperwork? Mm-hmm. Making up shit. Okay, I'm going to read this. Keep typing, Psychodorf. And I will read that all out when I'm done. This is called Dust. It is over on Creepypasta. The last storm was already on the horizon when I woke that Sunday morning. It hung in the south, a solid black wall of dust, churning and seemingly motionless. I'd every intention of sleeping late into the morning, as had been my Sunday custom since Addie and the girls had left. but the distant rumbling and cracking of lightning drug me from the bed just after sunrise. I shuffled drowsily around the farm in the early morning, lashing the doors in the barn, rounding up the 2 stubborn hogs, and shuttering the windows, but soon I found myself rooted in place, captivated by the writhing shape in the sky. It stretched impossibly wide across the open sky, rolling across the border from Nebraska. The air had a dry electric chill, and already the sickly yellow wheat swayed in anticipation. I was in a trance, eyes locked on the distance, when I saw a small light dust plume to the west, picked out in stark contrast with black beyond. The horse and rider at the base of the little dust devil approached the farm at a sharp trot, and my dust bleary eyes registered the silhouette. Carl Jordan had owned the farm next to mine for as long as my family has been in the Dakotas. I grew up with his great booming laughter warming our home nearly every night. His usual broad, yellowing smile was absent beneath recently trimmed mustache and broad-rimmed black hat. His dark suit was blotted with fine layer of grit that he brushed absently at. "Eddie," his voice was tired and small as he looked down at me. "No church today?" I hadn't been in months, and he'd once admitted to envying me. I just didn't see the need anymore, and I've relished the extra hours. I ignored the question. "What's troubling you, Carl? Maddie all right?" I asked. He turned towards the south to the storm and sucked loudly on his lower lip. After a few moments of thought, he sighed deeply with a phlegmy rumble. "The Hattersons are dead. All of them, except Saul," he said evenly, not returning his gaze to mine. I drank this in for a moment, feeling the inside of my sinuses beginning to burn in the cold and arid breeze. I briefly dwelt upon the image of the youngest Hatterson, a towel-headed toddler with dim-looking smile I'd seen at the general store with Saul and Molly a few days prior. "How?" I asked finally. He grimaced slightly, still gazing south. "Saul's missing. No one's seen him since last night. Maul and kids are dead. Saul's gone. Don't sound good. Don't sound good at all." Carl slumped forward a little, and I saw, not for the first time, how old he was. "The whole hornet's nest is stirred up over in Pinkerton. He was going to lose the farm, they say." Fleetingly, it concerned me that I could easily see the connection between these facts. "Mattie's fine," he said after another silent moment. "Just a little ill this morning. Thanks for asking." He broke from the black clouds and picked his eyes on me. He offered a pale imitation of his familiar smile, but his eyes remained squinted tight, haunted. He looked as if he had more to say, but at last he just nodded and gathered his reins. "Be safe, Eddie," he said, a phrase worn smooth by repeated use, and turned towards his farm, trotting quickly, head still crooked towards the storm. By noon, I could only watch as it reached up and blotted out the sun. The dust storms enveloped us, obscuring the sky like the hands of God. I did my best to rotate the allotment of bourbon I'd poured off that morning, watching the black wind scour the earth through a broken shutter slat. During the storms of the years before, pale and weak compared to this tempest, Adele would huddle with the girls to read scripture, inevitably ending with the revelations in hushed, reverent tones. I tried not to scowl at her, fear and awe, but now I could feel a little tremor of doubt in me as I looked out at the sackcloth sky. When the sky darkened a few shades at nightfall, I prepared a small meal of bread and fried eggs and drained the rest of the bourbon I had. Later, I laid in the unmade bed with the world spinning, the sky howling outside, and tried not to think. The storm raged stronger than ever the next morning. The sun weakened through the maelstrom, a fat circle of hazy orange like fading coal. Late in the day, it showed no sign of abating, and I resigned to leave the house if only to feed the animals. I tried my goggles to my heed and a damp bandana around my mouth, but I still gasped at the haggard burn of the dust when I stepped outside into the storm. The lining of my throat seemed to crack and bleed within moments. I could barely see the barn, but I set out instinctually towards it. A tall hillock of fine black dust was pressed to the side, and it took me a few kicks to clear the door. The dust had seeped in everywhere, and the hogs and cows were covered in a layer of grime. They stood still in their pens, eyes red and glassy, shuddering and jerking with each loud creak from the roof beams. They ignored their food. There was a twisting coil of anxiety in my chest when Carl arrived, leading the terrified horses behind him. His beard was matted with dust. He had to sweep the lenses of the goggles to clean at my doorstep. But instead of entering, he only waved me out to join him. "You need to come with me," he shouted over the storm. The dust between his teeth had formed a thin black mud that flecked at the corners of his mouth. It was his tone, flat and even, that terrified me. I didn't argue, but pulled on goggles, offered him a second bandana. I followed close behind him, one hand on the horse's haunch. Carl picked his way down the path, navigating by some uncanny memory of the curves in the little road. We walked cautiously and deliberately west for the better part of a half a mile, past Carl's own farm, towards the leaning shape of the Collins farm. A throbbing dread began to stir in my chest as we approached. The door was thrown wide open and off its hinges, swinging violently in the wind. I could see Roger Collins slumped in the doorframe, the congealing blood on his forehead caked with fine dirt. His eyes were open. The left eye beneath the bullet hole was flooded red and tilted wildly skyward. Clutched in his curled hands was a rifle with one spent casing. Abigail Collins and her youngest were inside, curled tightly around each other in the corner of the room. The flowers of blood that bloomed on the fabric of their dresses was bright, and it was vivid. Slumped upright at the dinner table, as if ready for a meal, was another figure, filthy and caked with black dust. He seemed composed, sitting upright and proud, despite the pinprick bullet hole, clean and bloodless, standing starkly in the center of his throat. His grimy skin was dried and shriveled. His eyes were closed, the lids sunken over the pits. It took a long, yawning moment to recognize the desiccated face. Saul Hatterson, hands clasped around a little revolver, looking for all the world like he'd been dead for a week. Saul Hatterson, grinning obscenely wide, showing dried black gums. Despite the roaring storm, there was an unearthly stillness in the little house, and I could hear my heart thudding in my ears. I turned to Carl with pitiful expression, a plea for some sort of understanding. "I was bringing them some canned food. Roger was worried about being able to last out a long store," he shouted from the front porch, where he was closing Roger's eyes and wiping the blood from his hand. He looked up at me and stood. "Jed's missing." I gazed around the room again before turning to Carl. "You don't think that Jed," I began, letting the idea remain unsaid. Jed was a quiet and sickly kid, but something about him always set my teeth on edge. "No," he barked. "I don't think a 15-year-old would be capable of this. But I didn't think Saul was neither. None of this makes any damn sense." He brushed the lenses of his goggles clean once more. No, it doesn't," I agreed. "We should head into Picton and tell someone, but I need you to drive the Collins Ford. I can make it between our 3 farms on foot, but I don't think me or that horse could make it all the way into town." Carl looked mildly embarrassed, hidden as he was behind dust and beard, and I followed him to the barn. The Model A made a few grinding rasps before dying completely, refusing to respond to anything. When I opened the gas cap, a damp and clumping mixture of dust and gasoline tumbled from the little opening. My breath came in increasingly shallow gas as we moved to the Collins tractor, unscrewing the cap. The same reeking clay was stuffed to the top of the tank. The walk back towards our farms was silent, my heart pounding as I struggled to keep my breath steady. As the inside of my sinuses were scoured raw, first Carl's tractor, then we checked mine. Both were useless and clogged with dust. If Carl was as panicked as I was, he refused to show it. "Eddie, I don't know what any of this means, he yelled to me as we crouched over my tractor, the sky dimming. But I think I'd appreciate it if you stayed with me and Maddie tonight. Storm has to let up in the morning, I'm sure. I could see at last the spark of fear in his eyes, and it brought me just a little solace. Carl went ahead, panicky with thoughts of Maddie, sick in bed on her own, and I agreed to follow shortly. I entered my house to gather my shotgun and a tin of coffee. I don't believe I intended to start drinking, but the bloody and crooked eye was shining wetly in my memory, and I drew from the bourbon a few soothing pulls. I recall being tired and weary from the day's grim business, but I don't remember lying down on the cool wood of the floor. When I woke, gripping the gun and empty bottle, the sky was lighter, but the whirling black clouds still surrounded the world on all sides. Tuesday, I thought through a fog of pain, or is it Wednesday? I groggily allowed the shame to flood in when I realized I left Carl and Maddie waiting all night. After finding all the water drained the night before, I dressed for the storm and headed out to the well. Pump handle strained against me as I pressed down, bringing up the first sounds of water. What came out of that pump was black and viscous, thin black paste. I dropped the tin bucket in disgust, feeling yesterday's dread igniting behind the alcohol ache, and I turned quickly towards Carl's farm. On the road, with my destination not yet visible, I turned to see behind me. Wasn't even the faint outline of my barn. In that moment, I was alone, surrounded by a wall of vibrating earth and wind on all sides of me. Could have been all of creation, and I would have never known it. Could be the end of creation, and I would have never known it. I turned back towards Carl's farm and began to run in a panic, frantically hoping I had not altered direction. As the small unpainted house came into view, I saw Carl's horse lying motionless on the ground, still tied to the railing on the porch. A small dune of black dust had formed against one side. The door was wide open, slamming into the wall with a sharp crack at each breath from the storm. My panic spiked like a fever when I stepped inside, and my body began shaking violently. Maddie lay spilled from her bed, trailing sheets and a shredded fragment of her nightgown. Her head was twisted, her neck bruised and bent, and bulging glassy eyes seemed to stare directly at me. Her tongue was thick and black between her teeth. Seated on the bed above her, spindly legs dangling over the edge, was a dried and leathery corpse of Jed Collins, the missing boy. His eye sockets gaped empty and black as he silently grinned out at the world. Carl was nowhere to be found. I backed out quietly from the house at last, truly toning out the chaotic roar of the storm. My mind spun, trying to make sense of utter madness, and it stoked the fires inside of me, panting, desperate, dread flooding my limbs until I found myself propelled blind, running through the storm towards my home. I continued past the hulking silhouette of my barn, legs flooding with fire as I sucked in great lungsfuls of choking dust. I thought nothing of destination. I only wanted to get as far away from the storm as possible, far from the empty charnel house of my neighbors, and from empty eyes and wicked grins. I made it as far as Thin Fork of the Missouri that carves the far edge of my land. I saw through the wall of shifting haze the black outline of the river from a distance. When I approached, legs slowing, lungs burning, I saw the river more clearly, wide and unearthly still. The water was black. It was black and thick, and in mute disbelief I watched it flow slowly, like molasses under a dark and churning sky. And then I began to understand. I nailed the shutters closed, driven by an animal urgency of purpose. The door I braced with Adele's heirloom cabinet, allowing it to crack and splinter on its side as I stacked a streamer's chest on top of it. I didn't really believe that this would slow whatever would come tonight in the howling darkness, but I wanted to have the time to know, to be sure. The last bourbon bottle lay empty on the floor, and I was glad for this, for the chance to be clear-headed at last. I sat back to the wall, facing the door with the shotgun in my hands, and I waited. The sky darkened and the storm continued to howl. I measured my breast, trying to hold on to that moment of calm, to stretch it out until it dried and snapped apart. It was late at night when it arrived. I could hear the heavy footsteps circling the porch, pulling lightly, testing each shutter. My hands were suddenly slick with sweat on the barrel of the shotgun. The shuffling footsteps stopped in front of a door, and I saw the wood flex ever so slightly as pressure was applied. A scraping sound began to rise, hissing from the small barricade as it began to slide slowly across the floor. The force on the other side of the door increased slowly, steadily grinding against the heavy barricade until the door was open to the storm and to the night and beyond. The figure swept into the room with a silent grace that surprised me and stood regarding me. Carl's skin seemed to crackle and go taut like paper as he moved, and in the hollow of his empty eyes were tiny, twisting clouds of dust. Blue ribbons of electricity arcing across the sockets. He was smiling, a smile I'd never seen from him, a wide, obscene grin. I felt a strange sort of calm then, the surety of knowing, despite the impossible madness of it all. I raised the shotgun. "Eddie!" the thing inside Carl hissed, in a voice like grinding sand. The corpse took another step towards me, and I saw a black trickle of mud from the edge of its cracked lips. "Go ahead and shoot, Eddie. See what it gets ya." I smiled back at him, seeing the solution so clearly at last. I took a moment to be thankful that Adele and the girls are gone. Thankful in an awful way that I'd struck her hard enough for her to finally leave me. This would not be the night that they die. It had moved halfway across the room now, shuffling towards me, the malevolent sparks of its eyes locked on me. The now familiar dread reared up to swallow my temporary peace. I saw in the black whirlpool of its eyes the great storm covering the entire earth in a final gloom. I saw trails and chains of endless murder and atrocity crisscrossing the darkened world. Into that last eternal night I saw the end. All I had left was a little sliver of hope, enough to spur me onward. I swung the shotgun up under my chin, feeling the cool of the barrel on my chin. The thing inside Carl jerked to a halt and ceased to smile, and I knew I'd gambled right this time. It needed me, and it wasn't going to get me. I made sure I was smiling, drinking in the thing's rage and frustration. The thing roared with a leap, burst from Carl's body, his dying muscles snapping and shredding into long, fraying fibers as it shed him like a coat. Thudding to the floor behind, it was a swirling cloud of flurry and dust, coursing with lightning and pure elemental hatred that I saw then swinging towards me faster than I would have believed possible. Thin tendrils coiled and tightened and wound their way through the air, twisting towards my mouth and nose. I could feel them caress the raw passage of my lungs, hot, twisting, and unmistakably, horribly alive as they slid into me. And then I pulled the trigger.
The imagery on that one was intense.
Yes. I absolutely love that. Guys, I don't know how these stories are going to end any more than you do. So.
Thank you. I think Psycho got his story out too.
All right. I've been involved with 6 other people dropping paperwork and 2 managers in their management. IG potential up to Department of the Air Force, theft, 4 investigations, illegal actions, misconduct, and 4 MMD 2.4 CM chunk out of my arm. I got a GS5 about to quit more paperwork, GS11 doing register work. Through it all, I've been able to contribute, and more than once, y'all have put a smile on my face. Pleasure to be here. Thor bless y'all. No, bless you, Psychodorp 9. want to tell you something. You are amazing, brother. And the shit you've dealt with, amazing. I've known you for a long time. You've been here since the very beginning, brother. Thank you. Thank you so very much, Psychodor. Skull, brother.
Skull. No, I've brought your name up a couple times with Loki when quiet times when there's no chat running off and saying how much I admire how you contribute and that you are definitely a fixture of Valhalla that can't be replaced.
No. You know, we started this because standing together is always better than standing apart. We've all had to go through something. We've all had to deal with something, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, psychological, whatever. We've all been through something. And we're all here to back each other up. And hopefully we always will be. Hopefully even after, I'm gone, people will continue to carry the torch and get what I've tried to do here.
Absolutely.
So, and yeah, ain't no thing like me but me. And Brett Cohen with, is that a $5? Brett Cohen A with $5 super chat. Great read, Loki. Thank you, Brett. Thank you so very much. I love getting to do this. I absolutely love getting to do this. So this is one of my favorite nights because I get to read cool fiction and be just as surprised as you guys.
And I get to talk with Loki. So there.
So we will be back in the morning. I think we're going to talk the prequel trilogy in the morning. We will be back hanging out with y'all. And then we're going to have a members stream tomorrow. And then that's it. Until Sunday, we're going to come back and watch 300 this Sunday at 5 p.m. We're going to have a 300 watch party. Hope you all can be there. Everybody take care and have a great night. Big thank you to everybody again. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Adega, for being here. And we will catch you guys later.
Good night.
These videos are tremendous. Like, comment, and subscribe, and hammer that notification bell.